Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, people of all ages, welcome back to the Sticky Floors podcast. I am one of your hosts, CJ, and I am joined by Mr. Will. We are back with season seven. We ended season six with The Dark Knight, and in typical comic book blurred fandom, we coming back with Captain America: Brave New World. If this is your first time listening to Sticky Floors, welcome. If this is you've been a constant listener and subscriber, thank you very much for joining. As always, we want you to like, subscribe, and share on our YouTube page, which is called Sticky Floors Podcast. We're also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. So hit that subscribe button and enjoy the journey with us. Mr. Will, how you doing it this evening?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I enjoyed some time off, man. It was good to get back in the movie theaters again. Like the last set of movies we talked about, we were watching at home basically because they were out from years ago. But it was good to get back into the comic book movie experience. And I'm looking forward to talking about this because there's a lot of levels and layers to it, man.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was really, I will piggyback off of what you said. I was really impressed with some of the trailers for the movies. So I'm looking forward to them as well.
Yeah. Saw some really, really interesting trailers. And this is an interesting movie, right? And it's a lot of kind of synergy and irony and remembrance from when we started this YouTube page last February, this time of year, with Black Panther. So I guess it's only right that this time we come back talking about Black Captain America.
Yeah, full
So
circle.
right, full circle, right from Africa to America. That's how it goes.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
The African American journey. So, anyways, man, yo, let's jump into it, man. Give us the synopsis, and then let's break this movie down.
Yeah, definitely. Sam Wilson, now firmly established as the new Captain America, is thrust into a high stakes international crisis after a meeting with the newly elected president, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, played by Harrison Ford. Rest in peace to William Hurt. Uh,
Yes.
Ross proposes an international treaty to regulate the harvesting of adamantium, a powerful and mysterious new supermetal that has emerged in the MCU. However, when Ross is targeted in an assassination attempt that implicates his old friend and former Captain America, Isaiah Bradley, played by Carl Lumbly, Sam is compelled to take matters into his own hands. As Sam digs deeper into the conspiracy, he uncovers a far reaching plot that threatens to spark global conflict and trigger a new colonization race over the control of adamantium. With tensions escalating, Sam must navigate political intrigue, fractured alliances, and his own sense of justice. In a race against time, he seeks to unravel the true mastermind behind this conspiracy, ultimately realizing that the stakes are higher than anyone could have imagined. As Captain America, Sam must protect not only his legacy, but also the future of a world on the brink of war.
There it is, man. Great summary of this film, man. You mentioned adamantium right in the
Yeah.
beginning, and it was great to be in the theater and hear them say the word and hear people in the crowd go when he said it. Like I just appreciate like people that are kind of like in their comic book movie vibe and like know what certain references are.
Yeah, that was pretty dope too. I think the fact that what it alludes to as far as Wolverine, Weapon
Hmm.
X, the various other supporting characters like Cyber, who also has background in Wolverine's history, him having cybernetic arms that are also coated in adamantium and skeleton and such, saber tooth, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And those references that you just made, it made me think of a question, something that I was wondering about, and I felt like you're the best person to ask this to. Um, so when people go to comic book movies, right? What percentage of them would you say are like knowledgeable enough about the comic book storylines that influence these movies? So in other words, like what percentage of people walk in and say, "Yeah, I know that what I'm watching is pulling from issues blank to blank of this particular comic book movie."
Wow, that's a brilliant question. Because it's deeper than just the surface level. So, wow, I'm gonna say 59% do not have any clue whatsoever.
Okay, so the majority, it's almost 60%.
Yeah.
Don't, and 40. percent are like in that vibe where
Yeah.
they really know. Okay, okay, all right. I was wondering about that because I know what I know, and I know like me being a fan of like when I
Hmm.
read comic books, I know there's a lot of people that are still reading comic books that are coming to the movies, and I know there's just younger people who may not have read the older comic books, and I know there's some people who their entire idea of the MCU is based on what they saw in the last movie or the
Hmm.
last show. And I was thinking about like what does that mean when you're watching a movie about Sam Wilson being Captain America? Like does the average person go back to and say, well, yeah, that happened in Captain America number blah blah blah, and that's why that happened, or are they watching it as this is the transitional character arc of this particular character, Sam Wilson, who we saw for the first time in The Winter Soldier?
You know, man, you're coming out guns blazing today. Um, I'm gonna say that a lot of people, their point of reference with respect to the cinematic comic book universe is the movie itself, or
Okay.
or the television show or whatever. Like that's what they reference. And I think it's the cause of a lot of miscommunication, a lot of anger, a lot of animus, a lot of um quite frankly just
Hate,
yeah, like
but not like hate like we do, like real
no, I mean
deep
like
seated,
bitterness, yeah,
yeah,
like
deep seated
resentment.
hate. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean cuz I look at it like this. It wouldn't if they had more knowledge as far as the background or the canonical versions of these characters, they wouldn't say things like, "Oh, this is wokeness. Oh, this is a
Mm,
DEI. Oh, this is not my Captain America because Anthony Mackie said that Captain America is not representative of America. He's representative of trustworthiness, loyalty, commitment." They wouldn't say
yes,
these things, especially since a lot of these words that are used are now mimicked in real life politics and
absolutely.
a lot of these so-called movements that are going on now. And the irony is Chris Evans said the same thing years ago. There wasn't an issue. Captain America, written by Jack Kirby at the time, said these same exact words, and they were reiterated again. I want to say by Steve Burbank in his run, um, with Captain America saying, "Hey, General, I'm not loyal to the United States just blindly or anything. I'm loyal to the dream." So a
Mm.
lot of these things, if people had knowledge of where they came from, they wouldn't espouse such foolishness.
Yeah, those are all great points, man. And I think it's impossible to talk about a movie like Captain America in 2025
Hmm.
with Sam Wilson, a black man as Captain America, and it not be a part of the cultural, political milieu that we live in right now, right? And it's interesting because like when I watch movies, I also like watch and read and see what other people think about movies. And you're
Right.
right. There's been this push to frame this movie as through a negative lens, like you said, like the DEI Captain America. Like there's been an
Hmm.
intentional design to do that that really I think undercuts intentionally a good story and a good movie and this incredible character arc that Sam Wilson's character in the MCU has had that people, if they only watch this, would be aware of and should have more respect for. But even if they did do the comic book research that some people have and they know that Sam Wilson in the comic books does also become Captain America, they should still have a more of a sense of appreciation for how we get to this point in this movie in 2025.
Yeah, it's crazy because he's been Captain America for over a decade. That's the funny part, you know. Like this is not something new. This wasn't a Kevin Feige thing or whatever have you. This was
Right.
announced ironically in July.
Yeah.
So like the actual quote unquote birth month of the birth of in the United States or whatever have you. So the satirical origins aren't lost upon me. That's one. Two, um, I think it's very funny, like hysterical, like belly laugh, funny that a lot of individuals when they make these comments. One, it's grounded in absolute ridiculousness. Two, it's unfathomed that someone could say these things when literally you have a handheld computer next to you where you could just look these things up. You don't have to go to the
Yeah.
library. You don't have to buy Encyclopedia Britannica from a salesman
Yeah.
anymore or anything like that. Um, and I think the last point I want to make on Captain America, Sam Wilson, is that the DCU made this pivot at a time where the country itself was making a pivot, the world itself was making a pivot, where individuals who had been marginalized for the longest wanted to see themselves depicted in fictional works as well as in non-fictional works, and wanted an honest portrayal of their plights as human beings.
Hmm.
Right or wrong, whether you agree or disagree, whatever have you, the fact is individuals wanted to see themselves. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting to see yourself either on the big screen or on a television set.
Yeah.
You want to know that, your story matters just as much as those that were being showcased, elsewhere. And that's all this really was. We
Yeah.
didn't mean to offend or hurt anyone.
Yeah, and like you said, it's also comic book accurate as well.
Yeah.
And even if the comic book part was aside, as a viewing audience, we have seen Sam Wilson get to where he's now considered Captain America,
Hmm.
right? We saw him in with the Winter Soldier meet Steve Rogers. We
Yep.
saw him be in Civil War, a little guest cameo in Age of Ultron. We saw him in Infinity War. We saw him in Endgame. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier really, I didn't realize that so many people didn't like that show until I started reading a lot of the comments about it. I really liked it,
So
and
did I.
I thought it really explored as much as the Disney Marvel universe can the friction and tension around Sam Wilson as a black man trying to take on the role of Captain America in modern day America, and they use Isaiah Bradley a lot to kind of show how that could go wrong and how that was exploited in the past. And they kind of reference in some in this movie. But I think that just as a casual movie goer, I just appreciated the character arc of Sam Wilson to get to a point where he's now in this role to be Captain America in 2025 our time, 2027 Marvel Cinematic Universe time.
It's dope that you bring up Isaiah Bradley because his backstory, even though they showcase it in the Marvel Universe, in the MCU, in the various movies, as well as in Disney Plus television series, his comic book history is just as rich and vibrant. Whether it be with his grandson, who's on the new Avengers, carrying on the legacy of him, so all the way that most people don't recognize, but Isaiah Bradley's not a new character.
Right,
Like that's the other
right,
thing.
right,
Like he's actually he's in the 2003 miniseries. Like there was a short term run, and even before that, I want to say around like 72, 73. There's reference to him and a bunch of other black soldiers, which is again kind of ironic that we're talking about this during so-called Black History Month, and the fact that this is more of a true origin story with the Tuskegee Airmen.
yeah.
So I just find that a lot of this stuff that um, individuals are upset about, perturbed about, um, they should take a closer look at the true origins and understand what it is that they're grappling with, because it's not a fictional character; it's something much deeper than that. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and the source material is rich with these characters to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. Is like it's not, as you said, it's not Kevin Feige's woke agenda to make a Disney movie and have like a Captain America be a black guy. So that's interesting. So that you got all of that, and I'm glad. I think you have to talk about that, right? Because if you don't, then you're missing out on like a big part of it. And I know that like we've talked about this when we did Black Panther, right? It's hard for these movies, I think, to really get deep down into the mud of the racial politics that
Hmm.
surround certain characters being in certain roles. So it's like, we talked about this with Black Panther and the idea of like the CIA agent helping Wakanda, like
Hmm.
that thing, that was tension there. There's this tension and friction, obviously, with the idea of Captain America being a black man in America working with the president. And then the president is Thaddeus Ross, Thunderbolt Ross, who's like a notorious MCU jerk from the very first time that we've seen this dude. And now this person who's like really, I would say villain adjacent throughout the
Mm.
MCU, now manages to get to a point where he becomes president of the United States, and that has all types of problems associated with it. Also,
Art imitating life, if you will.
how about
Um,
it?
which is kind of funny. Uh, I think the fact that, first of all, shout out to Harrison Ford for being able to take ownership of this critical role. He
Yep.
made it his own, and I definitely liked his portrayal of Thaddeus Ross in this film. Um, I like the fact that he is a man who's conflicted. He understands and recognizes his past mistakes. And like a lot of us, some of us aren't prepared to own up to them in that particular moment. So we do the best that we can, yet trying to hide these secrets, but understanding that eventually they'll come to light.
Hmm.
So you have a man that is thrust into not only an inner conflict, but an external conflict as well. And the Red Hulk itself is a symbolic gesture of that, especially with him
How
being
about that?
depicted
Yeah,
as
good point.
red and
Hmm.
triggered by anger, and him fighting, literally fighting back the transformation. I mean, I think that's beautiful. The analogy, the symbolism, the imagery, all of that. I love it. I love the fact too that I definitely have to highlight this, is that he's in a process where individuals won't let him live down who he was. Um,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
him taking the advice of others when they said like, "Hey, they told me to shave the mustache, otherwise I'd lose the election." It's a tongue-in-cheek type of thing, but again, it's indicative of his journey and his path and his character arc. And I think that also ties in with a lot of other things that go on with the movie itself.
Yeah, yeah, the Thunderbolt Ross thing, and I'm glad you hit on like the way Harrison Ford plays the character, different from the way William Hurt did.
Hmm.
And I think Harrison Ford also, the whole movie is kind of foreshadowing heavy the fact that it's going to be that he's going to turn into the Red Hulk at the end.
Hmm.
I remember, like when I was watching this, I remember thinking, "Dang, I wonder if there was a way that they could have not shown the Red Hulk in the trailers."
Hmm.
Like, I wonder if like how much bigger of a reveal it would have been if it happened at the end without me, like without it being so prominent in all the marketing. And it brings me back to like this idea of like, the casual moviegoer or even the person only familiar with the MCU world versus the comic book person. Because obviously the comic book person knows this is where it's going, right?
Hmm.
But if I'm in one of those 60% of people that doesn't, wow, at the end, what would that moment have felt like if I didn't see it in the official trailer like a year and a half ago?
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you 1,000%. I think that they could have chosen a different marketing strategy, and I'm seeing glimpses of this in the Thunderbolts itself, where Ghost isn't portrayed as the same version, same outfit, et cetera, and Taskmaster, more importantly, is only shown in the same clip over and over. So I think
Yeah,
that's intentional, and I think it sets up a death to have them really bring about the true Taskmaster, Tony Masters. So I think that it is possible to depict these individuals in a way in which you don't give certain things away and you kind of allude to it. They've done it before, not just in the upcoming Thunderbolts movie, but they did it in Infinity War and in Endgame. You didn't realize or know, maybe you just were totally unaware and oblivious to the fact that the stakes were high and they were going to kill off major characters. Yeah, some of them
yeah,
got brought back. However, I don't think anybody knew that Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, was going to be killed off. For the longest, there was speculation all the way back to Age of Ultron that Hawkeye was the one who was going to be killed. They didn't think that Quicksilver, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, was going to be killed. So
yep.
things of that nature really surprised me that that was going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean they did it with Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean
Yeah.
they hid the fact that they were going to have the other two Spider-Man in
Mm-hmm.
it, even though people were looking at the videos and
Mm-hmm.
breaking it down and saying, "Hey, where that blank space
Yep.
is,
Yep. Yep.
that's where Andrew Garfield
Yeah.
is." Right? They could have done it, but I think it goes back to what you said in the beginning. Maybe the marketing plan said if we don't put this in here from the beginning, people might not go
Here
see
come.
it
Yeah.
because they don't want to see
A black.
Sam Wilson as that. It's a crazy thing, right? And
Yeah.
it's like it just makes the whole movie operate in this really unique space, man. But the storyline itself, so You mentioned the adamantium from the beginning. So adamantium is now in the world, right? They finally found a way to tie in the Eternal story from
Yep.
way back, right? And then immediately there's this political friction and tension. Who's going to control, Celestial Island and adamantium? And I know that that gets into one of the things that you really want to talk about in terms of like colonialism and just how that kind of works with natural minerals.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that this is art imitating life, where you see a foreign entity go into another country as a whole and try to exploit them for their resources, or countries, I should say. So where
Mm-hmm.
they build a new airport, or where they, just outright say, "Hey, we'll pay you for some land and." Let us mine here, and we'll make other adjustments and changes to your country for the better. So from a transportation standpoint, roads and things of that ilk. Um, I
There it
think
is.
that
Things of
the
that ilk. You said
thing,
it.
I
That's
got
on
to
your bingo cards. On your
yeah.
bingo cards, you have things of that ilk. You can check that off.
Well, I got to drop our line. So,
Got to,
um,
man. It's trademark now.
yeah, definitely. I think that this battle for supremacy also is the surrogate battles and wars that will now take place for the to see who's supreme as far as accumulation of resources. And you see that going on today, where other countries are now on the brink of war, and the United States has come to their defense. Again, I don't want to get too political, but I think that this movie does a great job of highlighting that, yes, individuals can come to some type of agreement, especially knowing that there's only one planet that's hospitable for all of us, even though you have others who are battling to go into space and colonize whole planets. Um,
How about that?
but nonetheless, this is all we have, so we got to come together, and we have to try and make the best of the situation. The unfortunate thing is, though, that adamantium is utilized for more of a military purposes, and that's the segue that we talked about earlier with respect to the various other introductions of characters that the Marvel universe is begging and pleading for years now.
Yeah, right. And then how about the framing of Wakanda as
Mm.
an isolationist country? I love that. I thought it made sense that Ross would describe Wakanda that way, right? Because, like, yeah, vibranium has been this resource. Wakanda has it. Wakanda is not in the business of trading it, but now they have this new thing, adamantium, which they tell you is stronger than vibranium. Now everybody wants to go after it. So I thought that was like very spot on the nose for like the entire discussion around the natural resources and who's going to control them and how different factions are going to try to manipulate their ownership of it.
Which is funny because, quite frankly, this is a living being. That's the thing that I think people
Right.
seem to overlook, is that this is a celestial. This is a person that was going to destroy the planet due to its birth, and
Yeah.
yet these human beings think that, oh, we can just chop this thing up to harvest it
Yeah.
for other purposes. We can repurpose it for whatever have you, and no PowerPoint production slideshow is going to fully convey, like, this is barbaric. Like,
Yeah.
just let this thing be. Don't mess with it. We have no understanding as far as what it is.
And even the idea of like the PowerPoint presentation was interesting because they did that at a time when I remember when that trailer came out, and it was right around the time that there was an assassination attempt against Donald Trump, right? And it was like art imitating life, imitating art. It was just such a, there's so many things around this movie, like that, the political environment around it, it just makes it so complicated, right? When you're just looking at it. But it's funny when you mentioned the part about the celestial coming out of the island, the ground, it made me think about Superman Returns, right, with
Mm.
Brandon Ruth, right? So remember in that movie, Lex Luthor creates an island, right? And the whole thing was the island destabilized all the other continents
Hmm.
because there's only a certain amount of land mass and a certain amount of water and everything. I kept thinking watching this, wouldn't the Celestial have caused the same kind of problem if the DC comic book movie universe works in the Marvel universe, something that big coming out of the ground, wouldn't that have caused a lot of ecological damage and problems?
You would think so, but I think that there's not enough time to really give it a true exploration that it deserves.
Dig
Two,
that.
this would be a more costly movie. Three, some of the things would be lost in translation. Four, it would be overwhelming because a lot of the casual fans would be like, "What is all this? You're
Yeah,
introducing this, and I don't
turns like
understand it."
science, like a
Yeah,
science project. Then yeah,
and they're like, "I'm not trying to hear all this stuff, whatever, whatever." And then last but not least, I think the fact that it's just presumed like you understand that we live in a world that certain things just can't be explained. If you're in the MCU,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like there's
yeah,
there's all this stuff going on. Like it harkens back to when Christine and Doctor Strange doesn't believe that he can leave his body and go to the astral plane, and
yeah,
he's fighting all these different things, and she's saying that he's part of a cult until she finally witnesses like firsthand,
yeah,
like, oh, this is what he means as far as like the different changes. And even when um, Madness comes out, even then you have one of his former colleagues come up to him and ask, was there any other way? And it's like, how dare you ask me, was there any other way?
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, these movies and like I know you were saying about the idea of like going to the movies is like some part of a suspension of
Yes.
reality, right? And absolutely, these movies they ask you to do that, so that makes sense. So okay, so I'm good on the whole Tiamat coming out of the ground
Yeah.
thing and how that works. But there's also like this the thing about the Captain America movies, and they've always been the more sort of politically grounded,
Yes.
and this continues that tradition, right? And there's this whole thing of like the espionage angle and vibe that they're trying to create, and they extend that very well, I think, with the idea of like Sam Wilson now being Captain America. I think that that's a strong suit as well. I know that one of the other things is like the idea of like the justice and the moral ambiguity parts to this, and I know you had some really insightful comments about that. So if you want to share it, that'd be dope.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the assassination for 1 minute. You know, there have been presidents who have been assassinated in the United States. Everyone remembers John F. Kennedy,
Of
um,
course.
and of course Abraham Lincoln. Um, but I think some of the things that those two individuals share in common is that they were young, upcoming individuals during a very tumultuous period in which they galvanized this country in a way that hasn't ever been seen since those two individuals, and they share a lot of coincidences as far as their age and things of that nature. Um, but here in the cinematic, on the film on the screen, you have this person Thaddeus Ross, who, similar to President 45 and 47, he is very set in his ways, very determined on pushing his agenda um, at any and all costs. And sometimes he'll um, revert back to very basic traits, very primal instincts, if you will. Um, and it rubs people the wrong way, and rightfully so. Yet, in the case of Thaddeus Ross, I think he takes ownership of understanding like true justice is taking on not only the burdens of other people and understanding their plights, but also being empathetic and truly sympathetic to what it is. These things are not synonyms; they're truly distinct words. So he's not replicating the behavior. It's bigger than just calling his daughter and saying, "Hey, let's go and talk sometime." It's
Yeah,
owning up and saying, "Hey, you know what? Not only did I mess up, but I'm going to take ownership and I'm going to go to the raft and I'm going to serve my time and I'm going to adhere to all of these rules and regulations that I tried to bypass before because I thought I was above the law." It's him saying, hey, you know what? Yes, systemic racism exists. He may not say those words, but he understands that, yeah, I did Isaiah Bradley wrong. Because even Bradley says, hey, he earned that moniker Thunderbolt. So
yeah,
this is not
right.
something this
The Hulk Hunter.
yeah, it's not like
He's the
he
Hulk Hunter. Yeah,
it's not like he can hide from it. Like there are YouTube clips or whatever their equivalent of is in the MCU. It's on the internet, et cetera, et cetera. But yet, his saving grace is the fact that he's able to reason. I mean, say what you will about the ending, but I think it stays true to the character of Sam Wilson, where first and foremost he's a counselor. That's how Steve met him.
yeah,
Under those terms, where he was giving guidance sure, everybody will talk about, well, originally, technically, if you want to be correct, he was running laps. And no, where they truly interact and truly build as men is him giving guidance to other veterans who have seen some very traumatizing events. And
Yeah,
he's able to utilize that skill. Um, it's just really ironic where the Japanese prime minister says diplomacy is not your strong point, but with Sam it is, and he's able to, help talk Red Hulk down. So where you have Black Widow able to say, "Hey, sun's getting low,"
yeah,
and Banner
yeah,
changes.
yeah,
So you could see the duality where you know what the pen is mightier than the sword. I think Sam struggles with this identity, so you have to touch upon him speaking about, hey, maybe I'm not built for this. Maybe I did need to take the super serum. Maybe I did.
he should
Uh,
have.
maybe I did make a mistake in accepting the shield. but you know what? I'm gonna do this as a human being, and I think
Yeah,
that point right there is true to the character because
yeah,
he may not have this the strength of gods and superpowered beings, but he's able to hold his own. He's able to be a symbol not just for America but for humanity as a whole, to say, hey, in the face of monsters, gods, and goddesses, I'm able to still hold my own, fight, and champion the causes of the lesser or the so-called meek.
yeah. I mean, that's the so what Sam Wilson represents in this movie, and I think this is like really the core of it is like that emotional center. And you hit on a great point. His treatment of Ross is completely consistent with someone who does have a counseling background
Mm-hmm.
and has worked with soldiers and has worked with people that have done things wrong and has still found a way to try to guide them to the right place. Right. And I think he's done that and he's been that way throughout the tenure of the time that he's been in the MCU. So it makes sense that he's there. And I think that's actually a really brilliant point for the narrative and sort of where the movie ends and lands at. So I think that's true. I also think that these Captain America movies, they have like allowed the space for certain MCU characters to really grow and develop and change over time from where you got them from where you started. So yeah, Sam Wilson is one example, but then even Bucky or the
Mm-hmm.
Winter Soldier to Bucky to now potential Congressman James Buchanan Barnes, that's a hell of a character arc. You know what I mean? Then you've seen like Sharon Carter go from being good to being evil. You know, now Thaddeus Ross kind of going from the general to the president to a Hulk to a prisoner. Like he's like these movies. One of the things I will say about all these Captain America movies, and maybe it's because they're so grounded in the reality, or trying more so in the reality, is that they allow their characters to kind of breathe and grow and change and develop over time. And I think as a moviegoer, you get to watch that if you're just watching it through the movie lens.
Yeah, you can't forget Secretary of State too. He had a bunch of titles. He was
Oh yeah,
used
right. He's many jobs,
for the
man.
Accords.
He's
Um,
Jamaican.
but yeah, I do. I do want to recognize the fact that there's a trust level there, and there's also the betrayal that comes with it. There is the colonialization that comes with it, and the exploitation, but there's also the forgiveness and trying to build bridges. Um, I think the fact that everyone is on guard in such a way, even that conflict where the Japanese fighters are is still shooting at Sam and Falcon,
Yeah,
even though they've taken down um what is it I want the call sign Jackal, I think it is, and
yeah. Jackal
and
and
Whiskey.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I find that very dead on, because it's not as if another country would stop and be like, oh yeah, he's trying to help us out. No, they would still engage in battle because they're like, hey, this might be a trick. There's all this information, we verified it, and you're still not coming clean. So this only leads us to believe that, hey, something is not awry. Excuse me, something is awry here. It's definitely not right. It's definitely not kosher. And so you can, really prove that these allegations are false or provide us with some type of other contradictory information, we're just going to have to do what we do best, because we are a sovereign nation and you will respect us regardless of our size. That's one thing. Then the next thing I think, that, in this age of information where everything is readily available, we have to remember that there's disinformation and propaganda, and that these different titans, because they had Pakistan and France there, also saying, hey, look, man, we only came to the table because Japan came to the table. And once
Hmm.
you lost Japan, your credibility is shot. Remember, we don't forget what you did when you were a wartime general. And this is something he advocates when he's saying, "Hey, or make the call, get it done." And he's hanging his hat on the fact that he was a wartime general and now he's a wartime president.
Be a wartime president. Yeah,
Um,
completely comfortable with that.
yeah, and that's the sad point where when he retreats back into his old self, if you will, he's very comfortable there. That
Mhm.
this is like second nature for him, and he has no problem resuming those bad habits.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And it also, I mean, yeah, that's true. It's really so much in here that it just makes it like you can appreciate it the more that you watch it and the more that you think about it. I also think, wow, like the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe is like in this really what I would say like your success took a shot at you
Mm,
kind of point. You remember that phrase
yeah,
from American
good
Gangster?
gangster.
Like when the dude is talking to Denzel's character and talking about how you've become so successful that now people are trying to take your success from you. The meta analysis of that is like the way that people react to these movies, right?
Hmm.
Like on the outside, like everybody's like, I'm tired of comic book movies, comic book fatigue, all this kind of stuff. But within the movies themselves, there's also this idea of Disney has now created and maintained for over a decade now a cinematic universe of all of these different characters, where now the character's history exists on film, all of it. And it makes it where, as an audience, you also remember all the stuff that the person did. So you're along for the ride with them. And it also makes it hard to, I think, like start over from the beginning. Because one thing they've never done in all this time, they never did a reboot. They might
Hmm.
have switched out some characters, but they've basically told you that one narrative, long form story going back to the first Iron Man movie. And it's interesting because, like, we talked about some of the movies, the trailers that you see when you in the movie theater. Like I'm watching that one for Superman. This is like, gosh, third or fourth like reboot of Superman, and in the middle of the trailer, it says like, coming in July 11th, it begins. And DC has the ability now to keep like starting over the same story. And whereas the Marvel universe is almost like, I would say in some cases burdened by the weight of all of this narrative now that's there that forms the idea of these certain characters that we listen to and we watch.
Yeah, I'd offer some pushback on that. I think
Let
there's
me hear
something
it.
to be said for continuity
Absolutely. I agree with that.
and
Yes. Yeah.
stability and structure. And I think that the fact that Marvel leans into that only provides individuals who cherish these movies and these characters all the more a very fervent audience. And of course, sometimes it borderlines on being a zealot. I get that, but um, I guess that's what happens when you're very passionate about what it is
Yeah.
that you take a liking to. Um, I would say that it's one of Marvel's strengths, obviously, but the fact that you can say, "Hey, I can watch just the Captain America trilogy, if you will, and then this new trilogy that they're going to complete," um, and you know what? I don't have to necessarily watch everything else. I don't necessarily have to because these are complete stories. And by that I mean look at Steve Rogers.
Okay. This is all right. I got you.
His arc goes from being a very naive yet patriotic yet responsible individual in the first movie. And he sacrifices and it culminates in his sacrifice for the greater good. Stays true to who he is.
Hmm.
Second movie comes in, and now he has a little bit more experience because he's been awakened for some time now. He's catching up on what he missed, et cetera, et cetera. And he makes new friends. Um, and then he comes to discover, hey, the 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 world that I thought I was about to be reintroduced into isn't necessarily what I was told. And to his credit, he didn't necessarily take it at face. I mean, excuse me, he didn't necessarily drink the Kool-Aid. He took it at face value and he discovered these things on his own. And then the third movie, he says, you know what? I don't have to ask for permission anymore. I'm not going to ask for permission. I'm
Yeah.
my own man and I am the people's champion, if you will, without saying it.
Hmm.
And at the same token, I understand that I'm a symbol and I can give way and I can give credence to others who also are like minded. Enter Sam Wilson. So Sam comes in and they give a segue where, you know what? Let's make this a series on Disney Plus
Disney Plus, yeah.
and have him find his way, et cetera, et cetera. And then this movie comes out, and now he's supposed to be fully entrenched as Captain America. And you see Demolition Man say to him, "Hey, check this out, man, Cap. Yeah, I get you," without him saying, "Hey, we went through all these things together, and I fully believe
Yeah.
in you because you
Yeah.
won my confidence." No, he just takes to him. And this is a guy who leads a SEAL team, and these are the SEAL team that is, basically canonized here in the United States with such admiration for their exploits as far as defending this country and being the best of the best.
Yeah.
And if those guys can take to him, why can't everybody else? Yet he doesn't forget that he's a black man in America who has a tradition of hiding all historical atrocities, whether it be the internment camps of the indigenous people and being sold blankets, a la the Trail of Tears, to the Japanese internment camps in California during World War II, to civil rights movements, Jim Crow, segregation, slavery, you name it. Any atrocity, Sam represents those people too, the underclass, if you will, because he's the one thing that's true to Captain America is he roots for the underdog. So these are complete stories on themselves. You don't have to watch everything
Yeah.
else. You can watch these political thrillers and say, hey, these are movies of value, high value. The
Yeah.
Russo brothers are great directors.
So I think that so I agree with that. So I yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I do think that the ability to tell the continuity they have of Marvel is a strength. So
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Um I don't maybe burden is not the correct word, but it seems like there's these like times where I'm sure sometimes they wish they could just start over from
Oh
scratch
yeah,
or just introduce this totally new thing.
I
And I
think they
think
will.
that's part of what they're trying to get to with this
Mm-hmm.
multiverse thing is
Yep.
like, how can I reset this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because what they're doing with the story of Captain America is something that hasn't really been done in comic book movies, which
Mm-hmm.
is to take a character who is associated with this image, like Steve Rogers being Captain America, and then change it from it's not Steve Rogers anymore, it's Sam Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still Captain America.
Yeah.
In other movies, like I said, Superman can be Christopher Reeves, it can be Brandon Ruth, it can be Henry Cavill, it can be whoever, but it's always Superman,
Mm-hmm.
and that person is always Clark Kent, and Batman is always Bruce Wayne, and Peter Parker is always Spider Man. They haven't done like the
Yeah.
Spider Man becomes Miles Morales. They haven't figured out the mechanics of how to do that. It's an achievement of these movies to do that, and I
Yeah.
agree with that 100%. I must say though that I think it's somewhat of a it's very difficult for these movies to get into the real racial political architecture of
Mm.
what it means for these certain things to exist, and I don't expect them to. Let me say that I don't expect them to do that. So like I go to these movies thinking like I'm just gonna go and watch Black Captain America fight the Red Hulk, and I'll be happy with that, right? I'm good. I'm good with that, right? Everything else, like like the little part where Ross calls him son, and like, oh son,
Mm.
that's a reference to like how white men used to talk to black guys back in the like. I get it. I see what you're trying to do with that, but I also know that you're not really ready to go into that in a way that's cool. You don't have to do that for me. Just let me see the shield bouncing around stuff. I'm good. I'm good because like for me, once you do that, it start to pull me in a way that makes it a little bit more. It brings a different analysis for me that doesn't make it necessarily as comfortable.
Mm. That's tough. So are you saying it's disingenuous then?
Uh, that's a great question. It's not that it's disingenuous, but I will say this. I think that if you are going to be willing to open up a certain door, then you got to be willing to walk in it,
Mm.
and you got to be able to look around and see what's in that room. And I
Okay.
don't think the Marvel Disney like those movies they're not meant to really do that, and that's
Mm.
fine. I don't need them to, but I think they open the door sometimes, and then they don't really like walk in and see like what's everything in. And then once you do that, particularly with like black characters, me being a black man, then I start doing that. I'm like, okay, why did we go in that room
Mm, that stuff right there.
then?
I'm gonna let that. I'm gonna let that hit a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, that's stuff
Yo,
right.
yo. So let's get. We got some cake though, man.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
we got some cake though, man. I know we spent a lot of time talking about that, but hey, man, we back at our vibe. All right, man. Let's go with some cake. I got a couple things. I'm gonna run through them. Mostly like scene stuff. Isaiah Bradley. I like his assassination attempt when he tries to kill Ross. Because one of the things that I've always liked about these Captain America movies is I like the physicality of the
Mm-hmm.
super soldier. You got the super soldier can punch somebody and knock them across the room, or outrun a car, jump out a window. I like that physicality, and I'll always say I wish that Sam Wilson had that too, but I'll take it from Isaiah Bradley. I just like how that worked. The other thing I really liked was toward the end of the film when Ross and and Sam are talking, and Ross tries to like what I would say like big boy him, like I'm the president. I can
Mm-hmm.
keep talking. And Sam just keeps talking over him. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a very very like little powerful scene because earlier on, when Ross is kind of put him in a box, he kind of accepts the box. But then at the end of the movie, he's got like this completely different moral authority, and he just keeps talking until Ross finally admits, "Yeah, I'm dirty. I was trying to stay alive. That's why I got these pills. Yeah, I'm down with him. Yeah, I like that scene. It also reminds me of how sometimes in movies, a upcoming actor will be in a scene with like a well established actor, and there's almost like a handoff that happens in those scenes.
Mm.
Like it reminds me of ironically like Al Pacino and Jamie Foxx in Any Given Sunday.
Okay.
That scene where they're talking back and forth
Oh,
about
at
who.
dinner. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that part, like something along those lines. I like that. And then the last scene that I really liked was the Sam and Bucky scene. I like
Mm.
that. They have a great those two actors. They have a great chemistry. The series has done a great job of building it up. Their relationship feels very authentic, and I like how the two actors play it out. It's always good to see Bucky, even though he's a bureaucrat now. That's my cake.
So, shout out to Sebastian Stan.
That's my cake.
I take it, man. I actually like those things too. I'll take it a step further. I like the cast as a whole, as far as who they chose to do what scenes in that order and who portrayed who. I really like that. Like I talked about earlier, I like Harrison Ford as Thaddeus Ross. I even like Anthony Mackie's growth, like you did, his character arc, him being Falcon, etc. I liked all of it.
Yeah,
Um, in fact, the transformation from him coming on in the Winter Soldier and his crude suit to the rudimentary suit in Age of Ultron when they're replacing some of the Avengers, all the way up until the here and now, where the individuals at Wakanda, the scientists, helped him out. Great job. I
yeah.
even liked the introduction of Sidewinder, Giancarlo Esposito. You can see that there's
Hmm.
more. I like the fact that they eased him in. I wouldn't have wanted to see him as the big bad overnight without getting some type of understanding. There seems to be tension there. They
Yeah,
seem to have known each other, and there seems to be like some animus. I'm not sure where that comes from. Um, I like the piggybacking off of that is the Serpent Society. I like how they made them not into these buffoonish cartoon characters with these
yeah.
weird snake style
Or like Cobra,
outfits.
basically.
Yeah, I like the fact that they are an elite military force, strike force that went and became mercenaries, and now they're agents for hire. Especially with Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder, like him saying like, "Oh yeah, such and such told me it was going to go down like this," and he hits him with the knife, and then the battle axe. Like I liked all that interaction, and then last but not least, like we talked about earlier, I like the impending introduction of the X-Men, Weapon X, Alpha Flight, all that about to come on board next.
Yeah, dig that. I like that too. By the way, shout outs to part of that. That's that Sam Wilson character arc is also having now his Falcon,
Yeah.
right? Joaquin Torres
Which,
character.
for those that don't know, that is also comic book accurate. And
uh,
so is the costume.
Yeah, but I like that too because he's gone from being not. He was never the sidekick to Steve Rogers, which I
Yeah.
thought they always did a good job with that. But now he's like the mentor. He gets the mentor,
Mm-hmm.
the young Falcon. He teaches him the flip trick, like that thing.
Yeah.
I like that. That was also like a nice little thing that they did with that
Yeah,
too,
definitely.
as well. All right, so we got a couple things that we didn't like though, as well. A
Yeah.
couple of hate points. I'm gonna let you kick these off first, man.
Um, I'm just I'm nitpicking here with this first one, and I'm just not comfortable with Sam constantly doubting himself and always going back to
Thank
like
you.
comparing himself to
Golf
Steve
clap.
Rogers.
Golf clap for you.
Um,
Yes.
and the reason why I say that is Sam goes from 1 minute to saying that he's his own man and he's his own version of Captain America, but yet in the same sentence he's like, "Man, I should have taken the serum." Now, if you really feel that way, then you should have went with your gut instinct and taken the serum.
Yeah.
You can't second guess yourself in this particular role because you're a symbol now, and it's so much bigger than yourself and your own insecurities. And you knew that with the on the job training when you were by Steve Rogers' side for all those years, whether it be on the run or in official capacity, being welcomed back by the United States government. So I'm not really cool with all that. And then last but not least, and I think this is a more than I'm more like, yeah, this is something I'm sticking my guns to, is the rehash telling of the big bad as some evil scientist who was done wrong. I already seen this before. It doesn't always work well when you retread the same ground, the same vehicle, the same device. Whether it be Baron Zemo or even what's his face, the Swiss doctor.
You at the glasses from the
Yeah,
Winter Soldier. Yeah. That's
yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point.
I can't think of his name right now, but I'll remember. I just don't like the fact that, this is someone who was working with the government again, doing,
It
nefarious
is a
things
it is a
again.
retread.
And
Yes.
then the carrot before him is, you'll get your humanity back, you'll get your life back. No, you won't. You're too important to the government. You know too many things. Do you really think they're going to give you, like, don't be naive. You have
Yeah.
this power, the probability, whatever. You didn't think about this going into it. You're the leader. You're supposed to be intelligent. This is a dumb move. I'm not hearing this, man.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, man. I also couldn't understand why the leader turns himself in at the end. Like, dog, just be in the street. Like, like, yo, you finally get a chance to be outside. You'll be outside. Why, why'd you turn yourself? You didn't have to turn yourself in to set up that drama that happened at the end. But yo, I like what you brought up about the Sam Wilson part because I think that scene, him having that insecurity at this point, it did feel a little off because that was like the whole Falcon Winter Soldier storyline, and I thought like they kind of put that to bed. And in the cinematic universe, he's now been Captain America now for like 2 years, so it's like, dog, you Captain America now, like. And then the other thing is like, are you really going to question whether or not you can do the job every time somebody gets hurt? Because aren't you a soldier? Like
Yeah.
that's that goes with the territory, man. Like,
Didn't he mention that his buddy who was in the sky with him got blown? Riley got blown
yeah,
out,
I mean,
and the character is Armin Zola. That's who it was.
that's it. Solo, yeah,
So I'm just like, you know what? I'm tired of seeing another Zola. I'm tired of seeing you
good
sit
point.
there and it doesn't do him any favors. Like, how can you have confidence in him, a la in America, if they're constantly doubting themselves?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. That what you said there about the rehash on the villain, that knocks out actually one of my things that I didn't
Mm,
like because the leader didn't work for me. But the other two things is like, okay, so I have a power suit fatigue now.
mm,
Like I'm like over the thing disappears off my head thing. Like
mm,
I feel like I've seen that too many times now. I actually miss like when people had to take a helmet off or
mm.
like it could get broken or like it would flipped up. Like the whole nanotech thing, I know that's more of a byproduct of like the movie. You have to show the star. I have to see Anthony Mackie's face.
Yeah.
So okay, cool. I get that part, but I just don't like the visual of it. It always looks fake. It always just looks like a fake and artificial thing to me. The other thing is like the Hulk fight. Like I just think the Hulk would have killed him,
Oh,
man.
of course.
I just think the Hulk would have pasted would turned him into like some red, white, blue, and black paste on the ground, and like even how they got out of that,
Red,
I
white, blue,
and
paste.
black and placed on the ground, he smashed him in the face. But
Uh,
even so, all right, cool. I get like, okay, you took the Hulk to where the cherry blossoms are. They could have just had Betty show up there and be like, Dad. And
mm.
then he look at her and then I would have bought that. I just think that Hulk would have killed that dude. I just can't get off that one.
But to his credit, he does say, "We both know that you could finish me with one punch." You know what I mean? So
Because it's true.
he even
Everybody did knew
acknowledges the
it. Yeah.
ridiculousness of the situation.
Yeah, I mean that thing that's nuts. And by the way, the super soldier serum would not have helped him in that fight.
No.
He would have still got crushed. It's
Yes.
a Hulk. It's a Hulk. But All right, fine.
And it's a
All
Hulk
right,
that spews fire. I think that's why,
they didn't
that's
even get into
overlooked.
that.
Yeah,
They
no.
didn't even jump into that one. All right, man. I got a couple questions for you, man. All right, so this is all right. First question I have is this: doesn't the government actually own the rights to Captain America anyway?
No. Um,
All right, break it down for me.
so, I had to remember this because, like, some of these books are from my dad. Like, I wasn't collecting heavy at this time because I was, like, real, real young. But you're talking about in 72, um, he goes before Congress and essentially they're like, yo, we want you to turn in the shield, this, that, and the third, whatever, whatever. And he's like, you know what? F y'all, I'm not messing with y'all anymore. You're doing all this shady stuff. Then there's it's in 87, it's issue 332, where he becomes where he's on the brink of becoming the captain. So they call him US
Mhm.
agent now, but that's the start of it when again he's questioning the government and he's not liking the things that he's seeing, witnessing, hearing about, et cetera, even
Yeah.
partaking in. Episode issue 350 is the Captain versus Captain America, John Walker. Um, so you got those issues automatically where there's a contest of does the United States really hold this, and it's in dispute. Like they can't trademark it, they can't do anything. Second point I want to make is Captain America he designated the Falcon as his replacement. He designated Bucky Barnes as his replacement. All the other dudes who were replacing him before, whether it be the Patriot or whatever have you, and they ended up dying off, he didn't co-sign them, he didn't do anything. So it's not lost upon me that those guys didn't work out, but the other two did, and he gave them the shield. So that's
Okay.
that's another thing.
Okay. So that's good. So that's very helpful for the people that don't know
Yeah.
the comic book history around it. Because what made me ask the question was like, I'm looking at like I looked at it like from the Captain America movies,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Steve Rogers is a soldier.
Hmm.
He's experimented on in an army facility.
Yeah.
He operates as an agent of the United States,
Hmm.
right? Then he stops, like you said, like when you ran through the whole history of it, and then America was like, cool, John Walker's the Captain America now, right?
Hmm.
Why couldn't I thought like why couldn't they just keep making new Captain America?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you know what, you go be Captain America, but okay, I got you.
But they tried that. So whether it be Nomad or whoever have you, Battlestar, all these other guys who were working as agents of the United States, they never worked out. And I think the fact too that whether it be the Shield, which was made by Howard Stark and given to Captain America as his. So
Hmm.
Howard Stark was a private individual.
Okay,
He wasn't a formal U.S. agent, whatever have you. He may have had access, but he was not an enlisted person. Which leads to my
okay,
second point. Steve Rogers was an enlisted man, and then he even tells Sharon Carter's aunt, what you call it, oh man, what's her name, Agent Carter,
yeah.
Peggy Carter, that hey,
Oh, Peggy Carter, yeah, yeah.
I only re-enlisted and went with Shield because of you, and it was a part of a way for me to remember you. So he re-enlisted again. So once his term of 4 years or whatever have you, the duration is, he's free to go about his business. They can't
They
take
created
the
back
serum
in.
out of him, and they took blood from him in the first one so they could replicate the serum. And that was the whole issue with whether it be the Hulk or Isaiah Bradley. So they had the trade secrets. They could have went about their business. The only way that they could discontinue him is to end his life, and that's illegal. So, yeah, I don't see it any other way.
Got it. All right, cool. Thank you for the answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next question. This one's a little bit more like just right in the movie.
Yeah,
Who's the president now? Because Ross is in jail.
yeah,
Like, who's the vice president? Like they never the movie never. I mean, I know
never.
this is like you can speculate on whoever it is now, but who's the president now in the MCU
You want to know
post
what's
this movie?
crazy? I'm thinking that it's War Machine. I'm thinking that that
Mm,
it is what you call it, Rhodey. And the reason
Rhodes,
why I say
yeah,
that is that who else would he pick to co-sign him that would keep him in line and they can disagree and he could fade into the background and have this extensive knowledge and interactions and history and camaraderie with individuals like he's a known commodity and he can
interesting.
speak to the fact of like, hey, I know what it means for us to be behind enemy lines. The Skrulls took me. You know what? And
Yeah.
we're not going to let that happen ever again.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I thought you were gonna say Norman Osborn, but like, that's cool. That's cool. You came with that one too. All right. Yeah. Here's my last question. All right. So, cinematic, like where things are and where people are. Is this movie? I'm gonna give you four movies, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, three movies, and three movies in the show. And
Yeah.
I want you to tell me if you think this movie takes place before or after these things.
Okay.
All right. So first one is Thor: Love and Thunder. Is this before or after Thor:
After.
Love and Thunder?
Definitely
It's
after.
after. Okay. Why do you say it's after?
The way chronologically everything is set up as far as the introduction of characters, what's going on, and how it has to build up. So, for example, Thaddeus Ross is still hunting after the Hulk during this period. You know what I mean? Love and Thunder even talks about like Thor's going off world, right?
Okay.
Directly after Endgame and Infinity War. Like all that Thanos stuff is done with. So now he's off to a new adventure with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And that can
Okay.
only be during a certain period where he has to get fit, and then they come back around for him to come and revisit Earth again to see what's going on. So I definitely think it's afterwards.
Okay. The Marvels.
Again, after.
After the
And the
Marvels.
reason
Okay.
why I say that is there's no speaking about Thaddeus Ross as president during that time. You get
Good
the
point.
the
Good
inkling
point.
that there's somebody else in power.
Good point. I like that one. All right. Ant-Man Quantumania.
Again, afterwards. And the reason why I
Okay.
say that then is, you know what? Most people aren't even talking about Kang the Conqueror or anything like that, or any allusions to anybody.
Yeah,
Like that's over and done with, and they've moved on to the next.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's because of legal
We
problem.
also know legal point, but as far as the cinematic universe of the Marvels,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there's any mentioning of that.
Okay. And is this before or after She-Hulk?
Again, after,
After
because
She-Hulk. Okay.
with She-Hulk, she fades into the to black, and at the same time when she's getting traded by Banner on that island, they don't mention anything about a Red Hulk or transfusions or anything like that. In fact, Captain America and Bucky are still trying to like formulate their relationship and grow into their roles as a duo, trying to assist the world as best as they know how. With the Steve Rogers now either retired or dead, something they still haven't talked about.
Which I love that you brought that up. All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Yeah. And just to piggyback too, just for those that want a more definitive understanding as far as Captain America and his role as sometimes being in the services of the United States, I recommend was it Captain America issue 337 with Falcon, Nomad as what's his name, Rick Barnes, um, uh, Bruce Banner's sidekick, and on the cover is Steve Rogers dressed in the all black uniform. That'll give a more definitive understanding as far as him taking on that role and departing ways as Captain America. At that point, he's known as the Captain. But now I got some questions for you, man.
Shoot.
I got four, nothing crazy. Where is Bruce Banner, Dr. David Bruce Banner, during this period?
So yeah, so that it's a good question. I guess he's off. I guess he's a Sakaar, maybe raising his son or something
Hmm.
like that. Maybe he's out there with
Hmm.
young Hulk or,
Yeah.
or something. Because when I'm watching it, I was thinking like, if Bruce Banner was like watching TV and he
Mm.
saw Thunderbolt Ross is a Hulk, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm on my
Oh
way. I
yeah.
want. Oh, I've been wanting this forever."
Hmm.
He was like even if he's like Smart Hulk now,
Yeah.
even the Smart Hulk version of him would be like, "Oh no, it's on now.
Let's get
It's
it.
on site. Let's get. I'm on my way. Call Sam. I'm on my way.
Mhm.
just keep him busy. I'm on the way." So yeah, I think he can't be in the world because if he was,
Yeah, you would get it
he
in.
would have been out there getting that. That would have been a stomp out. He'd been wanting that for a long time. And he took Betty from him too.
Yeah.
Oh, stomp out, big time.
Oh, that hurts. In what ways does this conspiracy behind the assassination attempt challenge Sam's understanding of justice and the moral complexity of his role as Captain America?
Yo, it's a real. So this kind of like dovetails with the question I asked you, which is
Mm-hmm.
like, what is the latitude that he has to
Mm.
operate as Captain America? Because in that scene, he really steps away from the idea that Ross, even as the president, can make him do anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Ross tells him, "Don't do it."
Yeah.
He's essentially he's wearing the banner of America, but he's not an American agent, right? And he's that comes across very clear. I think I just question like he could be Captain America, but I was wondering like, could they just be like, yo, you know what, this dude is Captain America too? But I like how they did that. So I think that's the moment where he also decides like, yeah, I'm my own agent in this.
I agree with there is an existence of autonomy because he even asked him, "What happens? You wanted to bring back the Avenger. What
Yeah,
happens when we disagree? Then we'll work it out together." So
yeah, right.
you know, but it sounds nice.
Yeah, it did. It sounded nice. Yeah, it did.
So does Sam eventually take the serum?
Yo, I want Sam to get the serum, man.
Mm,
I want Sam to get the serum, man. I'm gonna tell you, this is like, I think that Marvel, the Marvel universe needs a super powered black guy in it again.
mm,
They used to have T'Challa, they don't anymore, and they need that.
yeah,
And Isaiah Bradley can't be in everything, but I think
mm,
there has to be. I think like he first of all he needs to do it for himself because how many times is he gonna get his ribs broken, his arm broken? Dog, the movie should have been 6 months long from the damage that he took, getting knives thrown in
yeah,
his chest and getting stabbed by Giancarlo Esposito. Like he would be dead in 2 months doing that. I was like,
yeah,
how's he gonna survive as a regular person in that? I mean, like he's not like Bruce Wayne where he's fighting like somebody who's robbing a convenience store. Like he's in fights with the Hulk and
hmm
flying around. Like, dog, get the serum, man. Yes, get the serum, man. You won't be less of Captain America. You
yeah.
will live longer.
I agree. I agree.
I want him to get the serum. That's my serum for Sam.
Seriously.
Get a T-shirt
That's
that
the new
says that.
slogan. Serum.
Serum for Sam, man, with a beetle on it, with the little blue stuff coming out the top of it.
Oh, it's cold blooded, man. It's cold blooded. How does Captain America: Brave New World continue or evolve the broader narrative arcs established in previous MCU films, especially regarding the political and social explored themes in Sam's Captain America storyline?
Yeah, the underlying current of the MCU is basically don't trust the government,
Mm.
and it did that in Civil War.
Yep.
It does it here.
Hmm.
It did it in WandaVision because
Yep.
remember
Yeah,
it
they
was
came in the
they were
town.
trying to take the Vision and
Hmm.
White Vision's still running around there out there. Nobody talks about
Mm.
that. Like the whole thing had been infiltrated by secret society by the
Hydra.
Skrulls
Yeah.
and Hydra. Like the underlying current is that the Avengers, I think, as an entity, can't be a government sanctioned group.
Hmm.
It has to be able to operate as its own thing,
Yeah.
like the X-Men, like the Fantastic Four, like these other superhero groups, because the government can't be trusted.
Right.
And every time they try to do that in these movies, it doesn't work out.
I agree. I agree. That's dope right there, man. And that concludes that segment for the questions, man.
There it is. There it is. All right. So we added a new section. So we added a new section to the show. We're gonna do this, then we're gonna do the popcorn. So the new section that we added is hot takes. So this is like the one hot take that we have, something that we thought about in the movie that we watched that we think either will make this joint even better if they adjust it, or it's something that's like really holding the thing back because they didn't address it. I guess that's the same thing
Mm.
twice now that I think about it. But anyway, that's the point. It's one thing, like one like burning thing that I think is a big issue in the movie, or a big just an idea. We don't say issue. We don't know, right? Will does not know. Mr. Will
Nah,
does not know what
it's
my
intentional
plan
too, folks.
is. All right, so here's my big thing, right? And I have to say, you hit on it before I got to it, so I'm a little angry at that. But
Oh,
no, it's amazing that you did because we didn't talk about it.
yeah.
I think my hot take about this movie is that while the MCU and Disney have done a great job of writing Sam Wilson's character, they have actually done him a bit of a disservice by
Mm.
not fully closing out what happened to Steve Rogers.
Okay.
If they do that, like, is Steve Rogers dead? Is he alive? Is he in space? Is he old? Like, close the door on that thing, because then there's no more. You're Steve Rogers. Forget that. Steve's
Mm.
dead. Like, Steve ain't doing nothing no more. But
That's
no
cold
one
blood.
knows. No one knows because it's just hanging out there, and it hangs over It hangs over Sam Wilson's character. It hangs over the MCU. It hangs over the viewing audience, and it makes us all think at some point we're going to see Chris Evans back in the Captain America uniform.
That's tough right there. My pushback on that is that one, Utah the Watcher ends up getting killed, having his eyes removed by Nick Fury, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the people that takes up the helm as like Nick Fury's role is old man Steve Rogers. That's a whole entire run.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when Falcon is Captain America. So I think they're leaving that door open intentionally to talk about that. And with the pending Secret Wars movie, there's going to be a Captain Hydra, which is another canonical version. So Captain Hydra, for those that don't know, is a version of Steve Rogers. Some say the original Steve Rogers, done in by the Cosmic Cube, which is another power source that the Red Skull holds dominion over. And he, all along from World War II, his inception, he is really a double agent. He's an agent for Hydra. And then the Cosmic Cube creates another version of Steve Rogers who replaces Captain Hydra, beats him, and he's the regular Captain America that we know. But all of that was a ploy by a bad writer in order for shock value.
But I will say this though, right? Everything you're saying, yes, that's also the comic book understanding. That's you're in that 40% that know all those other things. I'm probably close. I'm in some of that 40, but I'm really in the 60%.
Really, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, it's been a long time since I've really read Since I'm not as into it as I was when I was young.
Okay.
So I know some of the storylines, but not the way that you do. Not like that. Not that level of reference points. I think that in this cinematic universe, which is like you said, for 60% of the population, this is how they're defining the characters and the history and all those things. Close out Steve Rogers. Like, is he old? Show me him in a wheelchair. Then show me him at an old folks' home. Show me him and Isaiah playing chess like Xavier and Magneto. I'm cool. I'm good with that. Or he's dead. Show me the funeral. Show me all the Avengers there saying kind of words. That's fine. But close it out so this dude can be in charge. He could be like the dude, man. That's all I'm saying.
I can respect.
That's all I'm saying.
I can respect that, man. That's dope. I take it.
What's your hot take, man? Give me your hot take, man.
I think that this film is the first step in the necessary pivot from the string of disappointing productions in the MCU. So everything from She-Hulk to the Marvels to even Miss Marvel, all that garbage. Yeah, I said it. Garbage, basura. This is the necessary first step into reclaiming, the Marvel we love and cherish and admire for all these decades.
So you're saying like for your MCU Grinch heart got bigger from watching this, man?
Yeah, definitely.
Really? So this is the one this has rekindled the flame for you.
Yeah. It was on some kindling, like, small embers. But this joint came back and like, like that Bugs Bunny joint when they take the fan and it does that, like you this, and then all of a sudden you're like, this is the one. Because one, it introduces a lot of side characters that people don't know anything about. So Sabra, the agent for Ross, where they say like, oh, she was in the Widow program.
Black Widow, yeah.
She is actually an Israeli superhero with superpowers, like all metaphysical stuff. I had already mentioned him, Demolition Man, and it's foul how the leader does him dirty, killing him off like that. But he has a Daredevil costume bottom and a Wolverine mask in the comic books. And he's a former military guy and everything. And he's actually Captain America Steve Rogers' buddy. And he's also in the transition from Captain America to the Captain, and he's on the cover of 337 too. So you get to see all these other individuals. I love that they brought back Liv. I love that they brought back Betty Ross. I love that they have the guy from Leader. I forget his name right now. I love that they reintroduced some old favorites, and at the same time they've speculated about the Maestro, and that they might bring back Eric Bana and also Ed Norton. So they'll have like a Spider-Man moment too, as well, with the Hulk, with those three different versions.
Yeah. Interesting take, man. I think we'll see, man. We'll see. That's a good one, man. So this is turned it back on for you, man.
Yeah, definitely, man.
I will say I'm very much so looking forward to Thunderbolts.
Yes,
I
yeah.
think that that's probably the one that for me would get me there, but I respect that this is the one that
Not
got you to that point. So
because
that
I love Sam coming back into his own and feeling a little bit
yeah, I
more
get you.
confident
Yeah, I
in
got
his
you.
role.
No,
Uh,
I dig that.
and
I dig that.
I like Bucky. I would have preferred to see him as Captain America and then transition to Sam, but I get it. I know that
Yeah,
there's only so many opportunities to make these movies and to do it right. So
yeah. No, good stuff, man. All right, so let's get to popcorn, man. Boxes of popcorn on this, man.
um,
1 to 5. You want me to go first? You
yeah,
want to go
please
first,
go
man?
first. Go first.
All right, so, so I'm giving it 3.5, man.
Whoa!
I liked it. I liked it. Um,
Wow!
it wasn't great to me, but I liked it. So
Wow!
I'm 3.5, man. I enjoy. Look, well, I'm not saying it's good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. I think it's a good movie going experience. Nothing bad. Like, it just wasn't like, the thing for me. Like it was like, it was all right.
Wow!
It was all right, man. It was all right, man. Please don't take my African American card from me, man. Please,
Nah, yeah. Look,
please don't do that, man.
we like what we like. You know what I mean? We
Yeah,
what is the whole this the whole thing? We listen, but we don't judge shit or stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Um, yeah, that caught me off guard. I'm sorry.
All right. What's your popcorn, man? What's the rating that you
Oh,
gave it, man?
4.5, man. Like
4.5. Okay. I mean, like,
I am
okay.
strongly an ambassador of this movie.
I know. I could. Yo, you said this joint relit the flame for you,
Yeah.
man.
Oh man.
This is the joint that brought you. This is the joint that brought you back in, man. You were on the bench.
Wow.
You know what I mean? You had done your resignation letter.
Yeah, I was done.
Yeah, and then now you're back, man. I got you.
Yeah.
I'm like, so this. I'm not. I haven't sent my resignation letter in for the MCU. I'm entertaining other offers. I am. I'm on monster.com for doing new cinematic universes. I haven't left
Oh,
yet, because we're gonna see how
oh,
this Thunderbolt thing works out, man.
oh.
But
I'm still yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious. I'm see how this stuff.
you gonna see how this plays out, man. They said there's gonna be a new manager. I want to see what the manager's gonna be like, before I make a move. Anyways,
Oh.
anyways, yo, that's our review of Captain America. Brave New World. It's in theaters right now. I should start off by saying there would be some spoilers. It was. We talked about the movie. I missed that. My bad. We just got back season
Oh.
7, so we'll be good from now
Yeah.
on. Next week we'll be back with another. I would say semi-political movie. The Hughes brothers' Dead Presidents. Man,
Yeah.
we're gonna come back with that. Something really, really, really grounded. In reality. So we're gonna go through that one. Once again, Sticky Floors podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Spotify podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on YouTube Podcasts, where we want you to like, subscribe, and share. Also comment, man. We've been getting a lot of comments. We respond to the comments. We appreciate that engagement. Appreciate those people who are taking up the time to listen to the show. We will see you again next week. Peace.